Hello, my friends. How is everyone doing today? Um, I'm excited about this topic. This video is called "The Opposite of Inadequate," and I meant to look up what the actual opposite is, but by the end of the video, I'm going to come up with what the word is, or at least something close to it. So I was wondering, when to start this off with, if you were tricked into believing something that wasn't true, and then you found out later, how would you feel? Would you feel happy, sad, uplifted, angry, delighted, betrayed? What feeling would you feel? Now, I'd appreciate it if you'd go ahead and type something into chat so I can get a sense of what it is you might feel. And if you're live, go ahead and put hashtag live. And if you're watching the replay, you can put hashtag replay. Thank you. Okay, so what if you don't know that you've been manipulated? It's unconscious, like it's just something that's been passed on from millennium. What would you think about if you had those certain thoughts once they become conscious? If you had those thoughts and you're like, wait a minute, that's because I'm a female? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is yes. It happens all day, every day. It's pervasive. Now, I'm not here to bash anybody. I'm not trying to create any problems. But I think it's really important to bring things into the light, to take a look at them, right? I know for me, that allows me to make a choice for myself rather than letting other people to decide for me and just blindly follow. That's not something that I'm capable of doing. I mean, I've known for a long time I'm a why person. Why are we doing that? Why do I need to say that? Why do I need to go there? Why do I need to have that in my hair? Just why? I drove my mom crazy. Okay, so maybe you're like me. Maybe you grew up in an atmosphere where certain things were just expected. Maybe people didn't pay that much attention to what you were saying, that it was given little value to you, what you were feeling, and just what didn't seem to be that important. And instead of listening to what was going on for you or in your life, even though you were little bitty, we're still people. We still have feelings then. Instead of honoring that, you were told to be quiet, go to your room, shut you down. It just wasn't interested. It was like, for whatever reason, you just weren't important enough for it to matter. So currently there's probably, or I should say currently and probably over the last 5,000 years, the world has been pervasively sought to deflate women. Didn't want women to get too high up on the food chain, so to speak, because that could be problematic for a man. We've been taught over the millennium, and like seriously, like 5,000 years, little by little, more and more as social media, etc., come up, to be fearful about all the millions of possible little bitty things that could show that we're inadequate. It's kind of like, how do you hold somebody down, right? So we compare ourselves to each other. We dye our hair, we pluck the little hairs off of our chinny chin. We get Botox, we get tummy tucks, we go on these extreme diets trying to fit in these little bitty size 4 or whatever. And for what? Okay, let me not get off on a tangent. Let me keep going. Okay, so what I'm saying is there's a cost to us, especially females, in the severity. But the cost to us as females also filters out and over into our partners, families, children, everywhere, right? So it's a really unhealthy thing that we do. So I want to show you some statistics and about something that may be going on that is a huge clue to what's really happening in our society. So here's some statistics. In the plastic surgery industry grew from 54 billion in 2021 to 56 billion in 2022. It's $2 billion in 1 year. Okay, that is crazy. But it's also projected to go to 72 billion by 2029. That means $16 billion are going to be paid into the plastic surgery industry in this 7-year period right here. Crazy. Okay. So why does a woman want to do this to themselves? I'm not judging, but why does a woman want to do this? What is it that we are experiencing out in the world about how we feel about ourselves? We're attempting to improve ourselves and improve our beauty because maybe if we look better, we'll be treated better. I don't know. It doesn't often happen. And so what does happen is people have a tendency to go to mental and behavioral health therapy, essentially. And I understand that. So as you can see, it was 76 billion, same years, right? So we can do a little comparison. Same year, 76 billion in 2021, 80 billion in 2022. So that's $4 billion. That's double in the mental health over the plastic surgery. And then 105,000 by 2029 is the anticipated growth rate. That's 25 billion. What was the other one? 16 billion, right? 16 billion in plastic surgery, 25 billion more in mental health. That tells us something. That's like a huge red flag going off. But it's like, well, what does it mean? What is the red flag? Like, we know something's wrong. We all can feel something's wrong, unless you've moved beyond it, right? And there are some people that have, and it's probably 20 to 25% of our population. But, before I go on, let me make sure that I'm clear about something. If somebody did get any plastic surgery, it's fine. There's no judgment on you. If you want to have plastic surgery of any kind, that's your choice. Some people do it because it makes them feel better about themselves. And that's perfectly fine. But think about why you might be doing it. Are you doing it for yourself? Or is it possible that you think that somebody else or another group is going to think better of you if you look a little bit differently? So we can think about that, okay? Or you can think about that. So the same with therapy. I went to therapy off and on for 30 years, and it helped because I was in great emotional pain. It was important for me to try to understand what was going on in my life. And so I'm a total advocate for it. But it's not the be-all, end-all. It doesn't cover, for me, it didn't cover certain aspects that I wanted to know more about, right? All right, so now I'm going to ask you another question. I want you to really take a moment, think about what's happening in our society and why women might feel so inadequate that we've got to reach outside of ourselves to such an enormous degree. It's huge. I mean, when we combine those two industries, we're not talking about, oh my God, clothing and makeup and hair and many, many other things. We're just looking at those two industries. And it's huge. So it's kind of bad news. But the good news is if we can look at it and we go, something's missing. There's definitely something missing where a person, does not feel happy enough with themselves or good enough about themselves, adequate to that they want to do something else to make themselves feel good. So if going to therapy works for you, do it, absolutely. If getting Botox or I'm saying Botox, any kind of plastic surgery feels good, go for it. I'm not trying to judge you about any of that. But what I do want to do is say, let's take a look and see what's going on inside of us. So after decades of studying human behavior, I keep coming back to what I believe the problem is. And as I share it, I hope that you can look into your life and see if that fits for you, right? Everyone's different, and I'm not trying to be the expert in women's woes, but I do have some thoughts about it, and I want to share them here with you. So one thing that I see is I see our world as very unbalanced. To me, the scales lean very, very heavily over to the masculine energy side. that don't hear that the wrong way. I'm not saying masculine energy is bad. I'm just saying an excess of it or an excess in the other way is not serving our society in general as a whole. We need to be a little more balanced. Okay? That's always going to tip a little bit, but right now it's really, really heavy on the masculine energy side. So if you've ever read books on, let's say, archaeology, human behavior, human evolution, or anything like that, you already know this information. But some people just don't know it, and it's important for us to bring it to the forefront so we can say, wait, what's been happening? You're telling me what's been going on? You mean just the last, say, 50, 60, 70 years that I've been on the earth? That's not like the totality? And it's like, no, we really have to look way back. Now, if you don't want to, that's fine. I love doing it, and so I will do it for you. But if it is something that you like, I'll also talk to you about it because I love it. Okay, so to get back on track here. What I'm trying to share and get you to see is that there have been patterns from the past, old patterns, and that they've just been perpetuated. Different groups will call this different things: generational, shadow work, patriarchal, something, whatever. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways people will approach this. I'm just sharing it right now. I don't have a particular name. I'm calling it old patterns because that's technically what it is. It is patterns that as we live in households and there's women around and we are female, we're kind of gonna, well, we used to at least. Now we're just starting to change this a little, right? But for eons, you just did what the previous generation did. And you lived more in the same household and groupings as the previous generations. And so you did what women did. Period. The end. That's just the way it is. Get over it. In today's world, we've got the internet, and now we're getting AI stuff, but we've got a lot of access to printed materials, online materials, groups, books, courses, all kinds of stuff to help us open up and see what's really going on deep inside of here. And we don't have to follow the way that it's always been. So I looked up some statistics about women, and I was like, do you know, and you may know this already, but these 3 points added together. It was only 100 years ago. That's like 2 generations maximum. Like, that's what 100 years ago that the 19th Amendment was ratified and put into the Constitution. Am I saying that the right way? That it's like, yes, the amendment to the Constitution. It's like we were only allowed to vote as of 100 years ago. Like, that's insane to me. And of course, the United States is only what? Less than 300 years old. But still, only 100 years ago. Oh, and then you had to be like 25 years old and could only vote in certain political races, where males at 21 could vote in any and all races. Any and all political races. And so you're like, why? What is this craziness, right? What is the disparitancy between male and female? It's because of how we were seen. Women were seen as less than, right? So then in the 1960s, the women were like, I've had enough, I'm burning this bra, right? And so there was a big revolution. There's been some problems because of that, and we're trying to settle back in and find out the answers to some things. But I'm going to say out of chaos will come beauty at some point, right? The last one I'll talk about is in 2011, so only 14 years ago. I just found it interesting that there was a study that concluded that women, professional women that wear makeup, were perceived as more likable, more trustworthy, and more competent, right? This makes you more competent. This makes you more trustworthy. I don't even know why this would even make you likable, although that's the one I could see the most, because, people, especially men, would be nicer to you, so you might be more likable, but more trustworthy, more competent? Like, are you serious? How does lipstick make you? I'm gonna wear a lot of it if it makes me more competent, right? It's insanity. So women who wore makeup were perceived as more likable, trustworthy, and competent. Here's the craziness. the results of this new study came from a major makeup, this was paid for by a major makeup manufacturer. That's right, a major makeup manufacturer, I'm not going to say who it was, Procter & Gamble, paid for a study to have makeup be a proponent of women, I don't know, being better and more likable and more trustworthy and more confident. It's freaking insane. It's insane, right? And so, again, I don't want to really bash, Procter & Gamble. I mean, of course, they want to sell more makeup. I get that, but oh my goodness gracious, what extremes has it gone to? Because a particular company or, say, religious organization or political entity or whatever can pay for a study in the hopes that they get certain responses or certain results, and then it's handed into society as if it's fact and law. And geez, should already know that because it's just so obvious. But I'm wondering about how often we're duped into believing something that probably is a little slighted. And that's where the first question came. Like, how would you feel if you were kind of tricked and didn't really know it? Okay, so I'm sure that finding, like what I just talked about, doesn't really surprise you. I just wonder how deep it's gone. And I guess I'm wondering how to pay more attention to that, how to open our eyes up to that, or how to go deeper in ourselves where I don't really care what they say, right? Like, oh, I'll be more likable and competent, or like whatever. Like, it just doesn't have the same impact. Okay. So women have been, to get back to, for eons, women have been literally made to feel inadequate in many, many ways. We've been told you're too emotional. Like having emotions is a bad thing. Or maybe we were just trying to get a point across because we just have never been taken seriously or felt that our emotions were valid, which they're often told that they're not, that we're crazy bitches, especially when the guy breaks up with his God, crazy bitch. It's like, there's just more to it than that. There's just more to it than that. We've been told how weak the female sex is, but it's amazing the strong desire there is for the weaker sex, right? We've been pushed down, held down, unable to succeed in business, glass ceiling stuff, because we're female. But we're strong, we're resilient, we don't give up. We don't give up, and we're still not gonna give up. We fall down. Sometimes we fall victim, like total victim, but we keep getting back up. And that's powerful. And I think it's because we know that we've got some work to do. I personally don't care to live in a society that does not value me as a female. I don't know where I'm going to go, so maybe I'll say it a different way. I don't care to be in a society that devalues what sex I am, right? I don't have the desire to live in a society that has no desire to help me understand my emotions and what they're trying to tell me. Or where most women are taught to not communicate our opinions, desires, or what gets us excited, regardless of what that is. We're taught to tamp that stuff down. I almost said it. I don't want to live in a society where we just do the same old things that our moms and grandmas and great grandmas did, because that's just the way that it is. I just can't. I can't. I don't think there's another word behind that. I just can't. It's just not how it's going to be for me. And I don't want to live in a society where I am taught to not speak up, not feel deserving, not be seen, heard, or valued. So I believe that these are huge reasons why our society is the way that it is. We don't know how to take care of ourselves emotionally. We don't know how to love ourselves. We have a tendency to have low self-esteem. I mean, it's pervasive, right? So I believe that we've come to a time here in 2023. I remember a long time ago, I was like, 2023, who was going to live in 2023? It's like saying 2054, right? I won't be alive then, but maybe some of you guys will. But I believe we've come to a time and place in our lives where we get to learn how to value ourselves as women. We get to learn to see what our strengths are, to learn what, especially the messages that we're getting from the messy childhood we had, that I get to decide, or that I'm deciding to decide that it's me. I'm going to decide, only I'm going to decide who's going to be responsible for learning about myself. I am. And I'm going to begin to master my thoughts and my behaviors and whatever else comes from within. I want to look at those things. I want to find out why I have them. I have questions about them. Interestingly, as I answered these questions and found out who I am, why I think the way I do, why I'm perfectly happy doing, say, administrative tasks, but I don't want to take care of human beings. Does that make me bad and wrong? There are people that have told me, yes, it does. You're a horrible person because of that. But I'm not suited for it. If I have to take care of human, both me and this human are probably going to be in a bad mood a lot. But if you're like, here's a list of chores to do, can you take care of these tasks? I'm on it, right? So as I learned what my, not just my strengths are, but like what I'm really good at, I guess that's a strength, I became more happy because I was paying attention to what genuinely feels right for me. So I'm going to ask you, or I'm going to invite you to ask yourself 3 questions. Do I feel deserving? Do I feel lovable? Do I feel worthy? Do I feel deserving? Do I feel lovable? Do I feel worthy? And if you're not answering yes to all 3 of these questions, I believe you might benefit from reading my book. It's called I Just Want to Be Happy. There it is behind my head, the yellow. I have it right here too. I'll just show you real quick. This is what it looks like with the tree, right? I believe that you could benefit from this book because inside the book you would discover like the number 1 reason why we feel so disconnected and lonely. Pervasive. It has a lot in there to help you find your worth, your value, and greater self-esteem. It shows you ways to connect or reconnect, depending, with yourself to help you learn how to alleviate the emotional pain that you know is still in there, right? And to help you shift from feeling like no matter how much I accomplish, I still don't feel quite good enough. And it's like, what is that about? Why do we do that? There are reasons. In the book, I share some stories, personal stories about my childhood and how I felt very inadequate and how I've been able to turn my life around and move into a space of feeling more than adequate. And I guess if I had to say one thing about that, I wish that for you too. I wish for you to become more, feeling more than adequate. So earlier I said I would discover what is the opposite of inadequate, because if you know what you don't want, I don't want to feel inadequate. If you go to the opposite of that, you can feel what you do want. So what would be the opposite of inadequate? Competent? Inadequate? Proud? Like, not in a bad way, but I'm proud of what I accomplished. If I'm inadequate, I'm not doing a very good job. So I'm doing a good job. I don't know, I'm going to go with competent because that feels the best right now. If you have a different word, I would love to hear if you're not, what the opposite of inadequate is for you. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever feels best for you. So the link to my book, oh, did I put it in the description? I wanted to. I hope I did. If I didn't, I'll put it in comments, but I think it's in the description. As always, I do love to hear from you guys. Whatever you're thinking, what you're feeling, what changes you're going through. Love hearing from you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hearing me and my words and for showing up. And not just showing up for me, showing up for you. That's the critical part right there. We need to show up for ourselves, right? So I'm Deb Pearson, helping you become more awesome on the inside. I'll see you next time.